data pipeline pals. Jacob from Streamdal here. I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of our latest plugin that I've written, which will allow you to super quickly add Streamdal platform functionality to any application that uses Apollo's GraphQL server, one of the more popular GraphQL implementations in the Node world. Quick background on Streamdal in case this is your first video or if you're unfamiliar. Streamdal is our open source code native data pipeline platform that allows you to visually build and manage data pipelines that you can then inject into your application with as little as a few lines of instrumentation using our SDKs or our plugins or our shims. Pipelines are injected using WASM, so they're ultra low overhead. Let's get started. In addition to the Apollo Server plugin, I've also written a simple example application that leverages Apollo's GraphQL server that I'm going to use to demonstrate how you'd install and set up the plugin in your own application. If you'd like to follow along at home, you can head on over to the Streamdal examples repository. There you'll find a variety of examples showing how to use some of our plugins and shims. And there you'll see Apollo Server plugin. That's what I'll be using today. Okay, I've got the Streamdal examples repository cloned locally, and I'm ready to go in the Apollo Server plugin. Let's take a quick look at the contents of the application. One site source file here in TypeScript. You'll see pretty typical GraphQL server setup. We've got a schema defined for GraphQL. Here I've added rudimentary customer order and a couple of queries and mutations that let you fetch and mutate customers and orders. The data is entirely in memory here. For the purpose of the example, I don't want to set up a database. And then I have some simple resolvers that allow us to add and mutate customers and orders. So if we wanted to add Streamdal's Apollo Server plugin to this, it would simply be a matter of heading on over to the terminal, doing an npm install Streamdal Apollo Server plugin, and sure enough, it's now a dependency of our project. And in addition to that, we just need to add the plugin to the Apollo server set up here. You'll see that my IDE automatically imported the Streamdal plugin from the new dependency, and we're pretty much ready to go. It's important to note that if we started the application now, although we've added the plugin to the server, it's essentially a no-op if you don't provide any further configurations about where the platform is running. The plugin is fairly unobtrusive that way. Let's bring the Streamdal platform up locally and configure our plugin to use it. Within the example application, I've included a Docker Compose, which you'll see contains everything we need to bring the Streamdal platform up, including the server and the console. If you are interested in installing the platform outside of the example application, head on over to the repo and have a look at the Getting Started section. You can see we have a curl bash script that will install and run the same Docker Compose that I have. Or if you are interested in installing the platform in your infrastructure or in your cloud, have a look at the install section under docs, and it should give you everything you need. We'll head on back to the terminal, run Docker Compose up, and we'll bring up the Streamdal platform. You can see the console is running on 8080. We'll head on over to the browser and have a look. Console's up and running. No services defined yet because we haven't configured our plugin. Configuring the plugin is pretty painless. You can do that using environment variables or with code. In the example I have locally, I've added a .env file with 4 environment variables. These 3 are necessary. You need to tell it where the platform is located, a token, and then a name for the service configuration. If you wanted to do it as code, in the example I have commented out versions of that you can see. With our environment variables in place and the plugin added to our Apollo server, all that's left now for us to do is to start up the example app and start adding pipelines. You'll see with the configuration in place, the plugin will now connect to the Streamdal gRPC server. console still doesn't have any information about our services because no data is flowing through them, but the Apollo server is up now at localhost 4000, so we'll go there, start sending some data through using the playground. So here we have the Apollo server playground. We have a variety of queries and mutations defined. We'll send through a customer query, example, random data, sent back, and sure enough, the operation is mapped. You can see some basic metrics about what's flowing through that operation. At this point, no data is actually flowing to the console. Data flows to the console only if you go ahead and request it from the plugin by starting a tail. So if we start a tail and then go ahead and run the query again, you'll see that the data is visible and sent back up to the console. Let's execute a few more GraphQL operations. We'll run the order query. We'll add a customer. This will give us a more complete picture of our service. And sure enough, you'll see that in addition to the customer query, the order query is now mapped as a consumer, and the add customer mutation you'll see is actually mapped as both a consumer and a producer. That's because the plugin assumes that you may want to attach pipelines and handle data differently that's incoming and outgoing. Perhaps the outgoing data contains generated values that you want to handle differently. Let's create and attach a pipeline. Let's have a look at our customer query again. Let's start a tail. Let's fire off the customer query operation. Sure enough, we see there's email data contained here that perhaps we don't want to expose to an external service. So let's create a pipeline and mask it. Let's detect, mask, PII. First step is detective step. We'll leave the path empty, so it'll search anywhere in the payload. We'll look for any type of PII. We'll add, after that, a transform step, which we will mask what's given to us from the previous step. Use the output of the previous step. We'll save that. We'll attach that to the current operation. Start our tail again, and this time when we execute our customer query, you'll see that the API data has been masked. And there you have it. Using the Streamdal platform, we were able to install the Apollo server plugin and enable it with 1 line of code, 3 lines of configuration, and in a couple of minutes we were able to add a pipeline to detect and mask PII. In addition to that, we got a nice map of all of our GraphQL operations and the ability to see data in flight and get some basic metrics about what's going through our services.